Warning, this review contains spoilers for the following books. If you haven't seen the videos reviewing them, I suggest you click here to watch them, or better yet, read the books for yourself. Stop the music! Stop the fucking music!
Okay, you guys want to see me pissed off? Because this is me being pissed off! Fuck this dull, boring, pretentious piece of shit!
I can't even. As poorly written as The Young World was, its sequel, The New Order, is measurably worse. The story is split again between Jefferson and Donna, with cameo chapters from Brainbox, Peter, and Kath. Yeah, spoiler warning, she didn't actually die when she died in Jefferson's arms in the first book. She was just in a coma. Cheap retcon? What's that? And she wakes up somehow automatically knowing that she's been cured of the sickness despite never having shown symptoms of any kind before or after being cured. And the plot doesn't get any better after that. I can sum up the entire thing in 2 points. 1. After the events of the first book, Donna gets separated from the rest of the group and spends the entire book dicking around with Marxists in London. And 2, Jefferson and the rest of the group spends the entire book gathering the tribes of Manhattan in order to disperse the cure to the sickness and to reform the UN, but to staff it entirely with teenagers. If that second part doesn't set off all sorts of alarms in your head, then you know nothing of politics. Okay, backing up. It turns out that the premise of the first book was a false lead. The sickness didn't actually kill all the adults in the world like we were led to believe. Points for a clever idea, but the follow-up was pure garbage. The sickness wasn't worldwide and largely didn't affect anyone outside of the United States. However, there is a rogue US military force that captures Jefferson and his group with the intention of getting nuclear launch codes from the UN. I'd explain that in greater detail, but that requires additional spoilers. The boring aspect is that there's another government agency doing the exact same thing with Donna, who gets, I don't know, traded, loaned, or something like that to the British government? I'm not even sure who they were. I could barely pay attention while I was reading. And the plot just gets more and more needlessly convoluted the further I read. This was so far removed from what happened in the first book that I wasn't even sure this was written by the same guy. I mean, the first book wasn't great, but at least events happened. At least I could mark off different things in the storyline. Every single scene with Donna can be summed up with, Donna misses Jefferson and lives the life of an ordinary college student / wannabe revolutionary. There is no narrative flow, but there are two-dimensional characters, long sections of padding that have nothing to do with the plot or the characters, and completely irrelevant chapters. Seriously, one chapter went on a page-long description of a friend of Jefferson's who died after the group left in the first book. This could have been something meaningful, since this friend was the only one in the entire tribe who knew anything about farming and apparently kept everyone fed through 2 winters. And he's the guy Jefferson left in charge in the first book. Ignoring that this was just another retcon, it becomes completely inconsequential when Jefferson ends his page-long rant with, and I'm not kidding here, anyway, now he's dead. Wow, what a meaningful impact this friend of yours had on your life. And another 2 chapters from Brainbox's perspective didn't include a single punctuation mark. Look, I know what Weitz was going for, making it look like Brainbox thought things so quickly that it just speeds by for the rest of us. But reading those chapters was downright painful and gave me harsh flashbacks to Ulysses. But terrible writing choices, a boring story, and flat characters are hardly worth all this anger, right? Well, yes, you're right. And the book's real problem is, like I mentioned before, how pretentious it is. Chris Weitz is so up his own ass that he could headbutt the back of his teeth. The book assumes these inherently obnoxious positions as fact, so much so that writing a defense of it never arises. I get it, that's kind of a trend right now, but fuck you anyway, buddy. Almost half of Donna's chapters, which composes roughly 20 to 30% of the book, are spent deconstructing this supposedly corrupt government whose biggest crime is not letting certain people wander into or out of certain sections of the city. And before anyone asks, no, these people are never given any distinction, so we can't simply accuse the government of being racist or sexist or whatever. Look, it's a dick move to be sure, but when you consider that they're under quarantine against a global plague with a 100% fatality rate, you might want to cut them a little slack. The book never tries to give the government's side on this, assuming that it's automatically evil and never considers their position. It's this arrogant stance that suddenly there aren't 2 sides to every story and your side is right just because that really pisses me off. Besides, having a government act as a bunch of overzealous bouncers is hardly the most oppressive thing they can do. Your villains suck. Okay, but switching to something less subjective. The book came out in July 2015 and was published by Little, Brown and Company. It currently has a 3.58 rating on Goodreads.com, and frankly, I think anything over a 3 in this case is an insult to fiction. The third book in the trilogy is due out this summer, but it's gonna be much longer than that before I bother picking it up. If this book pissed me off so much, and the trend continues, then Twilight might have some competition when the revival hits shelves. You may think that this book is up for the lowest rating I offer, that being kindling, but no. This is just a sleep aid. Boring, trite, and otherwise a chore to get through. I'd love to rank it lower, but I can at least admit that a lot of the things I didn't like were from personal choice. Objectively, it isn't bad enough to get a lower ranking, as much as that pains me to say. Still, I don't recommend this book at all. The only thing of mild interest that happens occurs only in the last 25 pages, which is far too late for me to care. But those were just my thoughts. Have you read the book? What did you think? If not, do you want to read it now? Comment below and stay tuned for more.